In this video, we are going to create some dialog elements. Dialog elements are components that you can use exclusively within dialogs. And the primary purpose of a dialog element is to enhance the look and feel, or sometimes the functionality, of a dialog. I'm here in the separation agreement template, and I'm going to click on the Test Assemble button to start an interview. And I'm going to focus on what's happening here in this client information dialog. This dialog has been set up with client-specific variables as well as attorney-specific variables for the client's attorney. But you can see everything is kind of compressed together here. There's little conspicuous separation between those client-specific variables and the attorney-specific variables. So my objective here is to gain some separation between the two groups of variables, if you will, and otherwise enhance the look and feel of the dialog through the use of dialog elements. So what I'm going to do to get into the dialog editor for this client information dialog, since I initiated this interview by way of the Test Assemble button, I can right-click and select Edit Dialog Component. It gets me into the dialog editor. Now you can create dialog elements using the new component button that you'll find, of course, within Component Manager. It also exists here in the top right-hand portion of the dialog editor. So I could click on that, click on dialog element, and then click on OK from there. But oftentimes when creating dialog elements, you'll be doing it for use within a particular dialog. In which case what you can do within the dialog editor is go down here to this bottom left-hand button bar just above the test and update buttons. These buttons allow you to create different components, but upon completion or creation of those components, they're added automatically to the contents of the dialog. So I'm going to use this leftmost button here to create a new dialog element. That brings up the dialog element editor. And you can see there are seven different types or styles of dialog elements. We're going to focus our discussion here on the three here in this first column. So let's see what a text style dialog element looks like first. All this really does is display text on the face of the dialog or within the dialog view. If I created a dialog element called client attorney information, and perhaps put that same text down here in the display text box. I'm going to click on OK here. HotDocs again automatically places that dialog element within the contents of client information. You can see that text now appearing at the very bottom of the dialog. That's because HotDocs will place this newly created dialog element at the bottom. So what you'll often have to do in this situation is drag and drop that dialog element where it needs to go. And I'm going to go ahead and put it right here between the client gender and client attorney name variables. And the effect in the interview is to create a little bit of separation now between this line, this last line of client-specific variables, and the start of the attorney-specific variables. Now, perhaps as an alternative to a plain text style dialog element, I could have created this as what we call a horizontal divider. In fact, what I can do here is modify the style of this existing dialog element. So I'm going to go back into the dialog editor and double click on it. And I'm going to switch my style from text to horizontal divider. Now I'm going to go ahead and put that same text that I put in the display text field for the text style dialog element here in what's called the caption field for this horizontal divider dialog element. And I'm going to go ahead and click on OK, and you'll see there's not much difference here in terms of where the text is displaying, but there is now a faint gray line appearing after that text, extending the width of the dialog view. This is the horizontal divider itself. It's just a faint gray line. Now, if I didn't have anything here in the caption field, then that line would, of course, extend the width of the dialog view. But oftentimes in using a horizontal divider, you'll have some sort of caption text that you'll want to display somewhere within the divider itself. Where exactly that text appears depends on what your justification setting is. We have it here set as left justified, so it's going to appear just before the line, but we could also put that text in the center of the line or just to the right of the line, as the case may be. So I'll go ahead and click on OK here. Now, whether we use a text style dialog element or a horizontal divider, we now clearly have some separation here between the client specific variables and the attorney specific variables, but everything is still kind of compressed together here within the dialog view. If we want to get some separation, some vertical spacing, in other words, between these client specific variables and the attorney specific variables, we could create a vertical spacing dialog element. So back in the dialog editor, I'll again click on this new dialog element button. This time I'm going to create some vertical spacing by way of a vertical spacing dialog element. Now oftentimes when you create vertical spacing, it's very generic and you don't necessarily need to name this dialog element the same way you would name other components. And that's why sometimes when creating dialog elements, you can check this box here and HotDocs will give the dialog element in question a generic name. In this case, if I click on this box, it creates a dialog element called vertical spacing 100. I'm going to click on OK here, and again, because this vertical spacing dialog element was created at the very bottom of the dialog, I'm going to go ahead and move it up here and maybe place it between the gender variable and that horizontal divider dialog element. You can see immediately back here in the interview there's now some separation that didn't previously exist. The nice thing about dialog elements, and this is particularly true with vertical spacing dialog elements, is that not only can they be used, or the same dialog elements used across multiple different dialogues, which is not typically the case with other component types, but you can also use multiple instances of the same dialog element within the same dialog. So you can see over here in the list of available components, vertical spacing 100 is available. If I wanted to, say, put another instance of this dialog element at the very top of the dialog, you'll see the effect here is to create some spacing between the title bar of the dialog view and the first line of answer fields. So using a combination of text or horizontal divider dialog elements in conjunction with some vertical spacing, we've clearly created some separation or distinction between what amount to two different sections of this particular dialog. If you look at the client attorney information text here within this horizontal divider though, it's plain vanilla. There's not a whole lot of distinction between this text and the prompt for the variable field or answer field that appears below it. What we often do in creating either text style or horizontal divider style dialog elements is we enhance the text that's displayed through use of HotDocs dot codes, specifically formatting dot codes. And that is going to be the subject of our next video.